how do you manage stress? And how would you answer this question in a way that is memorable, impactful, and unique to other candidates? Well, I'm going to help you with that. In this video, I'm going to share an example answer and all of the stealable elements that you can take away and use in your own interview to pass this question with flying colors. Now, if you haven't, do like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Now, this question is exploring your behavior, so it's a behavioral interview question. If you want to know the top behavioral interview questions, you can check out this video covering the top behavioral interview questions and answers. Now, in this case, your interviewer wants to know how you manage stress and stressful situations, but also what you perceive to be stressful. For some people, managing a project or event is stressful, and for some, this is just a breeze. So they want to assess what you find stressful that is not at odds with the role that you're interviewing for. So this is super important to remember, because in the heat of the interview, candidates openly share situations that they consider to be stressful without realizing that it would actually put them at odds with the type of candidate that would be perfectly suited to the role they're interviewing for. So let's just look at a few variations of this question that you might be asked so you know what to listen out for in your interview. So in addition to how do you manage stress, you might be asked, how do you handle stress? How do you deal with stress? How do you know when you are stressed? How do you manage stress at work? How do you manage stressful situations? How do you cope with stress? How do you deal with stressful situations? And how do you handle stressful situations? So any of these similar questions might be asked. So there are two key things that you need to avoid when you're answering stress-related questions. So one, as I mentioned before, avoid an answer that's at odds with the role. Like, I work best when I can focus and finish a task to completion before I start the next task. That's not a bad answer, but let's say that the role requires multitasking because lots of random tasks pop up throughout the day, which is actually common in many roles. An answer like that indicates that you might struggle to handle conflicting priorities. I actually had someone give me this answer when I was interviewing someone in HR to join my team, and when I asked them to elaborate, they explained that they get very frustrated when they're interrupted in the middle of a task. And when I explained that happens a lot in HR because people will come to you with random queries throughout the day, and you might suddenly get something urgent that just comes up and you have to stop and pay attention. It took a lot for that candidate to then walk back their answer to demonstrate that actually they didn't find it frustrating and they were able to regularly reprioritize throughout the day, and they did understand the difference between urgent and important. So the second thing to avoid is not giving an example. So when your interviewer asks you, how do you manage stress? They aren't asking for an example, but I highly recommend including one if you can, because it always strengthens your answer. So an example of how you've had to actually deal with a stressful situation in real life allows the interviewer to visualize you in that situation for themselves without having to just take your word for it. It adds authenticity to your answer. So here's how to structure your answer. In the first part of your answer, address how you pre-manage stressful situations with things like organization and planning, and include some of the tools that you use as well. So an example answer is, I'm generally quite organized. I tend to utilize spreadsheets and tools like Trello and other cloud-based project management tools to plan ahead and review whatever's coming up. So I find that as I've developed my organization skills over time, I find myself in less and less stressful situations. So that's just an example, of course. Include tools that you actually use. And this answer on its own is a usable answer, but you can take it much further to stand out and fully nail this question. However, all the organization and planning in the world can't account for day-to-day life. And of course, unexpected things are thrown up occasionally that I can't plan for. And that's when things can start to feel pressurized. In these situations, I consider what is urgent versus what's important. And although I assess what to do on a case-by-case basis, I try to look at stressful situations as just situations so that I can make the most logical decision. Now, if you're finding this helpful so far, then do click like. It's a huge help to the channel and it helps this video show up for more people on YouTube. So if you also want to support the channel in other ways, you can, in addition to clicking like, leave me a comment below, or you can buy me a coffee. There's a link to that in the description below this video. So what you're saying here is that if you take the emotion out of being put under pressure, under stress, short deadlines, or any other potential stressful situations that could arise at work, then your decision is more likely to be practical and logical, as opposed to stress-based or emotional decision-making, which demonstrates that you can manage under stress. And that's what you need to demonstrate in your interview. And that is what the interviewer is looking for if they ask how you manage stress. They really want the answer to be some variation of "I manage stress well," but this on its own is not a sufficient answer. So you need to back it up with why you manage it well, how you manage it well, and so on. So an easy way to do this is with the STAR method. The STAR method is a technique that helps you to structure your answer and include all the parts in your answer that the interviewer is waiting to hear. STAR stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result, and you can check out the top 22 STAR method interview questions and answers in this video. So this method automatically puts your answer in story format without you having to focus on exactly what to say next. So you can tell a story of the time when you managed a stressful situation to demonstrate how you manage stress. So if you want to make sure that you're prepared for all of the most common questions, then you can take a look at this free guide covering the top 20 interview questions and answers. This guide includes all the answers to difficult questions and the key questions that you must ask in your interview at the end to your interviewer. It's totally free, and you can get yours by clicking the link in the description box below this video. So here's an example answer using the STAR method. In my last position, I had to arrange a large complex annual business conference 6 months in advance. This was logistically complicated. It involved arranging travel, booking meetings, arranging speakers, accommodation, schedules, among many other complicated tasks. So this is the situation part of the answer and the first part of the STAR method, where you explain what the situation was, the context, and the details. Then you move forward to explain the task. This can explain either the problem that occurred and what needed to be done, or what you needed to do. I found out 3 months before the event that it needed to be moved forward by 2 weeks. Now, this doesn't sound like a long time, but we had employees flying out from international offices and rearranging projects around the date of this conference. So the task of moving this date forward was a big undertaking, and it meant that we may have almost double the cost in case the venue wasn't available, and a number of other changes. So there was pressure, but I decided to look at it from the standpoint of what was most urgent and the smartest way to move forward within the time frame I had. Then in part 3 of your STAR method answer, you're talking about the actions that you took to resolve the situation. Instead of immediately getting to work on rebooking venues, changing flights, and taking a very reactive approach, I decided to ask for volunteers to form a small pre-planning group who were willing to help with rearrangements at short notice. I called a meeting with the group, and I assigned each person a specific area to rearrange and focus on. So one person managed the venue arrangements, another agreed to sort out venue logistics, and so on. So the key in this part is actually the idea to build a plan or mini strategy around pre-planning, as opposed to jumping into it and trying to put out fires as they pop up. This is the part that demonstrates how you manage stress. Then in the last part of your answer, you talk about the results. So this is the positive outcome of the situation, or multiple positive outcomes if there were more than one. Although I lost a few days pulling together the pre-planning group, moving forward after that was much smoother and clearer, and the event with the new dates went much smoother than expected. The leadership team hosting the event thanked me for rearranging everything and shared very positive feedback with me after the event, saying the attendees really enjoyed the event and the stay. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your key takeaways and any questions that you've got in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.